This is a review that's been long overdue. It's the Adidas Predator FT Elite in the blackout colorway. I waited a little bit too long maybe, but it's here, my full review of this boot. Now, this boot is the most expensive of the 3 Predator Elite models they make. It retails at $280 in the United States here. I think it might be $250 in euros and then maybe $235 in British pounds. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's somewhere close when you look at the conversion rate. It's a mix of new tech with a bit of nostalgia. It has that tongue, that fold over tongue with the elastic band that was made popular by Bex and by everybody else who wore the Preds. And overall, it was a good boot, and I am happy that I picked this pair up. And I don't want to keep you guys waiting any longer. We're going to jump straight into the review, and as always, we're going to start with the sole plate. So this sole plate is the new Control Frame 2.0 sole plate. It's a little bit of an upgrade from the last one, but I think it has its issues. Now, after wearing all 3 models on turf, the Elite version, the laceless version, and now the FT version, I can 100% guarantee you that you do not want this sole plate for turf. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, duh, but I've been somebody who doesn't always wear AG on turf or artificial grass. Sometimes I will wear FG boots, but with how long these studs are, I really recommend you do not get this boot unless you're wearing it on grass only. And I say this because for the first time since I've started testing boots, I actually injured myself a little bit, nothing crazy, but I went to take a shot. I was playing small-sided and I went to take a shot at a tight angle. I'm left-footed, and when I went and cranked across my body, ripped that shot, my right foot stayed in place, and when I turned, it just did not feel great. I didn't pop or tear anything, thankfully, in my ankle, but a little bit of a lingering injury there. I've been dealing with it now for a month and a half or so. So do not wear these on turf. It also seems like SG for this boot has been kind of scarce, but I don't really think you need SG with how long these studs are and the way they're shaped with their kind of conical-ish, tri-star stud-ish or tri-stud shape. You should be fine on a muddy pitch because they're just long enough they're gonna sink into the ground. If anything, when you get SG, the studs are gonna be shorter than these FG studs are, from what I understand and from what I've seen. And I just don't think it's gonna make sense for you to get SG when you can just get the FG. You can wear them on FG and you can wear them on SG. So they're gonna be good for both of those uses. Now, an issue we have seen with these, and I've mentioned this in the last 2 videos I've done, is this Control Frame 2.0 sole plate has been cracking a lot. And what I mean by a lot is I've been DM'd probably 10 or 12, I wanna say, photos of this boot actually cracked, whether it's in the forefoot, on the bottom, in the middle here, although the middle's been pretty rare. I really don't know what to make of this other than poor design from Adidas or just poor construction. Now, I have worn 3 pairs. Granted, I have not worn them each more than maybe 10 hours a piece per boot, maybe a little bit more or less, depending on the one, but I've not had any issues with cracking. A good friend of mine, Texas Cleat Collector, has been keeping a tally on everybody who sent him photos of their sole plates cracking for their Predators, whether it be the laceless, the laced, tongue, colorways, etc. And I think he's got to be close to 20. I'm not entirely sure what that number is, but he sent me a ton of photos of people as well who have been dealing with this. So hopefully with the newer models and colorways we're seeing come out, sometimes brands will make a little bit of tweaks and adjustments before they do an entire run or like a colorway run. They fix some stuff. Did they do that for these? I couldn't tell you. Adidas is very hush-hush when it comes to any sort of manufacturing stuff. So maybe it's the best answer I can give, but I know the Trent colorway is actually coming out, and I have a feeling that if they haven't made those adjustments and the Trent colorway Preds are going to be cracking almost immediately, it's going to cause some issues. Moving on to the upper, it's the Hybrid Touch 2.0 synthetic skin. I think it's not necessarily an improvement from the Predator Accuracy. I really like the Predator Accuracy Plus, and again, that boot's only issue was the length of the studs. Same with this. But it's decent, it's similar, it's fairly soft, it's fairly plush. It reminds me sort of a more firm plastic mixed with Kangalite, and I'm not a big fan of Kangalite, but I'm also not its biggest hater out there. So it's decent. You don't get as much of a feel for the upper on this boot as you do with the, I have the actual just regular Elite version, the non-lace or the non-fold over tongue one. You don't get as much of a feel for the upper because most of the time you're striking right on the tongue or you're striking on the side of the boot here where all of those rubber fins are right here, the strike skin rubber fins. It's okay, it's decent, it's soft enough, and it doesn't cause you any real issues to want to have any sort of malice or hate against it, but I think maybe it could have been a little bit softer. I know the Roteros came out with leather upper, so I'm excited to try those, but for being a synthetic upper, it did the job okay. Expanding more on the strike skin fins, I've already talked about them a lot, but they do remind me of the Predator Precision, whether it's the remake or the OGs, the rubber fins that they had, and my main issue, as it always is with Predators lately, at least in the last few years, is why are we not getting the fins on the outside of the boot as well? I know it's not a common use area of a boot. It's probably one of the lesser used areas on a boot, but I still just feel like you can put fins in between the stripes. We understand that the 3 stripes is your branding, and you know, we should definitely be able to see that, hey, this is an Adidas boot, but we could fit some fins in here and there. Like, I don't know. I wish they would have just added more. I feel like it helps a bit with the grip, and you know, even though at the end of the day, rubber fins are not gonna make you a better footballer, I still think that they help maybe a little bit. The only thing I'll actually complain about seriously on this upper is going to be these stripes. I don't like how they're a different material. They're a bit more shiny, and it just seems unnecessary to me. I'd rather it just be all the same. It feels almost a little cheaper, a little tacky, and again, I know that you wanna brand your boot, but just having a very sleek and filmy and cheap plasticky material for your stripes on the boot just doesn't really sit well with me. It just seems kind of, I don't want to say dumb, but just impractical or even ugly as well. Now we're going to talk about the tongue, which is the main thing about this boot and what really sets it apart from the Elite model. The only real difference being it has this fold over tongue. Now this tongue is made of a different material on the FT or fold over tongue version than the regular Elite version. So if you see here, it's a bit more of a synthetic-y looking with a bit of mesh almost on the striking area of the tongue where it says established 1994, which is when they started the Preds. And on this tongue, it's a lot softer. It feels more felty, and it's a lot more cushiony as well than the other one. And this tongue also has a few cool details. It's got the 30 on the top for 30 years of the Predator, and on the inside of the tongue as well, it says established, let's see if I can get to focus, established 1994, which is a little hard to see because it's not cooperating, but it's there. It says established 1944 and then, or 1994, and then we also have, it says Generation Pred on the elastic strap here. Now, if you take this tongue away, to me, it's the exact same boot. There's no real differences looking anywhere else other than, I guess, the sole plate, but it's just because it's colored. Everything else feels exactly the same, minus the tongue. So really, that's the only big difference we're seeing here, and that's what causes the price in this to be jumped by $20, I guess, which makes sense because I'm assuming it's gonna be a bit of a different manufacturing process. I really think that this tongue is not a game changer. It's cool. I really thought that I was going to hate this boot because I am not a fan of tongues. I've cut the tongues off my Premier 3s. I was going to cut them off my Copa Gloros as well, but I decided against it just for the culture, I guess, just to experience it. But I left the tongue on these. I already have a laceless or a laced version without the fold over tongue, so I didn't need to cut the tongue off, and I guess I'm kind of glad I didn't because on feet, lacing these up, they look pretty sick, I can't lie. Even just looking straight down at your feet, they look pretty fantastic. And the last thing I will say about the elastic tongue is that it actually prevents tongue slippage. For those of you who don't know what tongue slippage is, if you have wide feet like myself, basically the outside of your foot, or I guess the midfoot, really stretches the boot and pushes the boot out wider, and that causes a little bit of extra room for the tongue to kind of just slide down to one side of the boot. For me, usually it's the lateral side or the outside, leaving some sock exposed where it just doesn't need to be exposed. And being that this boot has the elastic band, it keeps the tongue in place, and boom, there's no tongue slippage. So that is one thing I will say that the tongue actually does benefit this boot from other than looks. As for how comfortable these boots are, I would say that you probably won't be able to just jump right into a session with them, but it shouldn't take very long. With the regular laced version, I felt there was no real pain, just the boots felt a little bit tight, if I'm remembering correctly, and then I actually had issues with the laceless version having a bit of stud pressure, which I've always had an issue with laceless boots for some reason. I don't know why, but you'd think they'd be more comfortable, but no. However, the FT, the fold over tongue version, I didn't have any serious pains or any discomforts. It just maybe took an hour, hour and a half to really break in properly. But once broken in, and at least once my foot settled into the boot a little bit more, no real pains there. It does have nice minimal padding on the entire heel area and then even up the sides. So it kind of starts right here, probably right where the last lace hole is, wraps all the way around, comes to the backside and stops right about there. So for somebody who has heel issues like myself, my feet are just absolutely a mess if you haven't been able to tell yet. It just helps provide a little bit of extra cushion there, makes the boots even that much more comfortable. If you're wondering, hey Charles, what size should I get? I'm gonna tell you now that personally, I got a 9 US. It's the size I normally go with unless somebody else gives me some sort of information otherwise. And it was the right call, I think. There's probably a quarter to a half a size extra space in the toe, somewhere in between even, but not enough to where I felt like the boots were too big. And I think if I would have gone down half a size to an 8.5, the boots just wouldn't have been wide enough. So I have super wide feet, and that sometimes I have to sacrifice a little bit of room in the toe, but that will mitigate any pain I really get anywhere else in my foot, so it's worth it. So I will say, if you wear a 9 in Adidas boots right now, so the X, the Copa, the Predator Accuracy, then you can definitely go ahead and get a 9 in the Predator FT Elite. Now, I talked briefly about durability and how some sole plates were snapping completely. Now, I've not had that happen. Like I said, just a little bit of wear and tear on the finish itself, so it's metallic-y finish, but that's to be expected. And usually brands will put little stickers or little notices in the box that, hey, this finish will wear off after a certain time. Cool, whatever. Now, I don't have any real separation anywhere else on this boot. I do have a little bit of wear and tear near the toes, but it's actually not tearing away from the sole plate. There's no sole separation. It's just kind of what happens when you play in boots, right? So no real issues there. Now, one issue I did have with my Elite version, and you can see here, is that this whole section just kind of pulled away. This heel cup pulled away from the upper here, a decent amount. And that's very annoying, but I haven't had that happen yet with these. Now, could that be because I only wore them about 10-ish hours? Maybe. I wore them mostly on turf, which usually turf's more brutal on boots, but it's just too hard to say. I did wear them on grass once or twice as well, but again, I wish I could give more information on that, but it's just one thing that, unless I wear these boots for a month and then do a review, I really won't be able to comment on the durability as accurately as I would like to. I don't know if this falls under durability, but you can kind of see here, and I should have a better close-up for you guys, but this little white area here, it's just not what you really want from boots, especially on the tongue, to be showing with this elastic band here. I don't really like that it did that, and I'm not sure if that's actually ripping or just kind of extra material, but it's just something to note of. So if this elastic band comes off, I do know how to repair it, but I would just prefer it didn't. So far it hasn't ripped on me, but it looks like it might be ripping, even though that's how it looked when I first got them out of the box. So to summarize everything up, the Predator FT Elite is a $280 boot with the tongue. It's the same thing as the Elite version without the fold over tongue, just with the fold over tongue. You know, you're paying a little bit extra for it, but they're really the same boot. One just looks cooler. And you know, like I said, the studs are a little too long, so I would not recommend wearing this on turf at all, which is one of the few times you'll hear me say, do not wear this sole plate on turf. And it's fairly comfortable. The sizing is decent. You know, it's a good boot. I gave the regular Elite version without the fold over tongue an 8.8, which looking back, I feel was just a little bit of excitement, ready for the new Predator coming out, super hyped that I got it a little early. And yeah, I'm changing my mind completely. I think I'm gonna go with an 8.5 for the tongue version. And if I had to give it an actual rating, if I had to go back and give the non-fold over tongue version a rating, it'd probably be closer to a 7.9 or an 8.0. And I'm going with an 8.5 for the fold over tongue. So sorry if that was a little confusing, but the Predator FT Elite, I'm giving an 8.5 out of 10, mostly based on how cool it looks overall. Even though the tongue doesn't do a whole lot, it's still fantastic looking on feet. And you know, it's cool to see Adidas coming back with some more nostalgic boots, especially with the F50s coming soon. Can't wait for those as well. But yeah, 8.5 out of 10. I think you're really gonna like this boot. Don't wear it on turf, but if you play on grass a lot, you're gonna love it. I really don't think you're gonna have any real issues with this boot. And that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching this review. If you like football boot reviews or you want more football facts or information, make sure to check out the rest of the channel. We have tons of boots on there that we've done reviews on, and I think you'll really enjoy it. And with that, I will see you guys in the next review.